Diabetes Camp. Today I'm bringing you more information about what's going on behind the scenes. Welcome to the show. I'm Justin. I have type 1 diabetes, and on here I talk all things diabetes tech, news, and management, and hear stories from providers, tech leaders, and those thriving with diabetes. Last week, I spoke with two parents about sending their 9-year-old daughter, Molly, who has type 1 diabetes, to diabetes summer camp. I also got to ask Molly about what she loved most and what she learned from the experience. Today, we're taking a deeper dive into how camps like ADA Camp Freedom work and how they can be life-changing for not just the children, but also the parents. Speaking with me today is Chris Lally, a registered nurse and certified diabetes educator at NYU's Pediatric Diabetes Center, and she's part of the medical staff at Camp Freedom. She's volunteered there for 15 years now, and her son is a counselor now. We talk about how the camp monitors kids, how they handle meals and overnights and activities, and what children and parents can expect to gain from the experience. Now, if you've got any questions, let us know in the comments on YouTube. That way other parents can answer them for you from their own experience. And if you're looking for more information on diabetes tech and support, you should check out the free Diabetes Tech community Discord channel. There is a link to that so you can join the conversation in the show notes. Keep in mind that anything you hear on this podcast or on any of my pages is not medical advice. Always consult with a physician before making changes to your healthcare. Today's episode is sponsored by T1D Exchange. You can directly make an impact on diabetes healthcare, treatments, and technology by participating in the T1D Exchange registry. It starts with a simple survey about your life with T1D, and it only takes about 15 minutes. After that, you'll have a personal portal with ongoing T1D study and survey opportunities. Plus, some of these studies even offer compensation. Signing up with the link in the show notes helps support my channel, and it allows me to continue putting out free content. You can sign up at t1dexchange.org/diabetech or click that link in today's show notes. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Of course. Before we hop into camp, tell me a little bit about what you do outside of camp.
Outside of camp, well, first and foremost, I'm a mom, wife. I have 3 kids. I live in New York City. I'm a nurse and a certified diabetes educator. I work at NYU Pediatric Diabetes Center here in New York City.
How did you get involved with ADA Camp Freedom?
Good question. So I used to live outside of Philadelphia, and my youngest son has type 1 diabetes. So at the time we were going to CHOP for his diabetes care. And the nurses, the nurse practitioners, the physicians at camp, they love camp. So when he was 7, they asked if he wanted to go to camp. And of course he said yes. And if I would be a volunteer med staff.
Did you go to camp because he was going? Did you go, what was that kind of dynamic there, right?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of parents probably going to listen to this who have kids with type 1 who are just simply fearful about sending their child to camp. And as a parent, I felt exactly the same way. This was my child's physician who was the lead doctor at the time at camp. And I just kind of felt, well, I don't even know if he's going to treat that low well, right? So that was hard to give that up. I have to tell you, after being there, and that is why I decided, half the reason to volunteer, but after being there and seeing just how dedicated all of the staff, the ADA staff, the medical staff is at caring for kids, watching blood sugars, treating highs, treating lows, I had no worries. But what I got from it, just being able to give back to the kids, that also changed me forever, meaning I will always go back as long as I can give.
How long have you been involved now?
Going on 15 years. Might be 16 this year.
And why do you continue to go, even though your son's much older now?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a
Why do you go every year?
Yeah, he's a counselor now, right? It's it's a week that we can give these kids a week of normal, right? Diabetes is normal. It's normal in my house, it's normal in my work life. And just being able to give kids that experience to where they can show up and there are 180 campers, and then most of the medical staff, most of the ADA staff also has, a direct relationship with type 1 diabetes, either having type 1 themselves or being former campers, or just having a child or somebody else in their family with type 1. Just being able to give that week where it's normal. Think of meals, right? Meals in your house even, right? Like, it's normal to sit down and have to bolus and have to count your carbs and have to think about, can we bolus up to 10 to 15 minutes beforehand? And what's my blood sugar? Am I high or am I low? What am I doing after this meal? Am I going to need to account for that? Do I need to extend that bolus? Is it a slow or a fast carb? All of that happens with every single camper. So that's the normal part of the meal, right? The abnormal part is maybe I've never ziplined before and I have to go do that right after lunch, or I have to go, tubing today, or, it's archery and I like that, or, rock climbing. And that's the amazing part.
Yeah. At first, when you were saying a chance to be normal, my mind went to, a kid without diabetes, like feeling, and I was like, well, I wish we didn't have to say it like that. But no, what you're saying is the normal is that you are normal with type 1 diabetes. Yeah. You're surrounded by all these other people just like you that make you feel like part of a community, mm-hmm. and not maybe this isolated feeling that you may feel in the real world, and that's so special.
Yeah.
What would you say? What growth did you see from your son? Maybe after that first year, is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah. So even after that first year, as a little 7-year-old, coming home in the car, just singing all the normal camp songs, the peanut butter and jelly song, just in the back of the car the whole way home. Normal camp stuff, right? But then also I noticed, he noticed pump site failure a little bit. And this is by default because this is a kid who diabetes was always part of his life. He's had it since he was a baby. So, growing up with diabetes isn't different. It's just something we do. And just seeing that he wanted to give an injection because he thought his pump site was bad one time. And it's just something he learned from being in that environment. That's a small piece of it. But as a 7-year-old, just taking just one little self-care piece from camp was really nice. And that grows over time. But there's just a camaraderie that you get having just, any camp really, and fellow cabin members, and just being together with a team of people that are, all there to just have fun and, be themselves. That changed him forever, enough that he will go back every year to give back also. Just because it's something, looking up to your counselor, seeing what pumps they're on, what technology they're on. I mean, he came home maybe the second year of camp and he needed a tandem pump because his counselor had a tandem pump and the doctor had a tandem pump. And well, that's the one I have to have now, Mom. Okay. Yeah. So it's really cool. You get to experience so much, and these kids have firsts at camp. So when we check them in, they check in with their goals. And they can be diabetes related, they could be non-diabetes related, maybe just to make more friends, and it all combines. I find that a lot of kids in camp learn to do things they never expected to even want to do, like wear a site on a different part of their body, or even just talk about lows, or maybe not disguise their diabetes. If it's somebody who only likes to wear their devices on their abdomen, or upper outer buttock region or legs, maybe sport a Dexcom on your arm for the first time, try a site on the leg for a first time, because they see every other person doing it. So it just makes them feel very at home and comfortable in that space. It's a safe space.
What would you say are the benefits for like the family dynamic, not just the kids, but the parents and the kids and that relationship to diabetes coming out of this?
Well, it's a week of, parents being able to let go a little bit, right? We think of technology nowadays, think of a newly diagnosed family. Dexcoms happen sometimes right within the first few days of diagnosis. So parents are following Dexcom from day of diagnosis, if not very soon after. And, being able to have a week where you still are connected to your child, but you're letting go and you're giving that to somebody else, as well as giving the kids a week with just camp. It's just camp. There are s'mores. There's a food eating contest. There's, all the camp activities. Diabetes is also, part of their everyday. So that's why we're there to take care of it. I think from a family perspective, letting these kids have that camp experience. It's a traditional, the 6-week summer camps that most kids go to in the summer. So all of the activities they're the same. It is a camp. We just smush it all into 1 week, and there's a trained medical staff that's all have experience with type 1 diabetes.
Let's get into what the camp kind of looks like. First of all, how many people are there or kids, and what are their ages?
So it depends on the camp. I know with Camp Freedom, they operate off of a camp out in Pennsylvania, and I think the max capacity is 180. So it does depend on the camp, how many kids will be there. So of course they're broken up into cabins, and it just depends on the size of camp. So if there's 180 children, typically maybe about 10 children per cabin. And then the ADA, American Diabetes Association, this is the camp that I volunteer for. They staff usually 2 counselors. And then there's also CITs, counselors in trainings, and they're 17-year-olds and up who it's their first year they're going to graduate to be a counselor. So they're also staffed inside the cabin. And then there's a team of medical staff. So the medical staff doesn't sleep in the cabin. We're usually assigned at least 1 to 2, either nurse practitioners, nurses like myself, certified diabetes educators, dietitians, physicians. We are staffed 1 to 2 per cabin, and then that just depends on the person. So, and the cabin size. So we monitor them 24/7. Their Dexcoms are linked with technology now. So we have a main hub where we can access through a portal all of their blood sugars, but then we can break it down by cabin too. So I'll have my kids, I call them my kids while I'm at camp, I can log in at any time, of course. But then we're staffed. We are a medical staff, so we have a day and a night shift. We have on-call, and we have, they're a fine-oiled machine there at the ADA because they've been doing this a while. And the camp that I volunteer for, that's their flagship camp. So there's a system of checks in place, as with all diabetes camps, that keep the kids safe. Protocols in place.
Yeah. You keep saying Dexcom when it comes to CGM. Are all of is it a requirement for kids to be using Dexcom, or are some on other sensors?
Yeah, no, it's all technology. I say Dexcom, but if you're on a Medtronic pump, obviously you have a Medtronic sensor, and Libre is our other popular one right now. So Dexcom is just simply the most common for that age group, but we do have all technology.
Okay. And you said your son's involved. How old is he now? What is his title there now, and I guess his responsibilities?
He's a counselor, so he works for the American Diabetes Association, and he's a counselor, so he'll have a cabin of children this year as all other years, and he'll care for those kids for a week.
Wow. And how old is he now?
He's 23.
Okay. And so he became a counselor in training at 17 and just worked his way up?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very, very typical. Most of the counselors and the ADA staff are former campers, which makes it amazing. because the experience was just so, heartfelt for them and so important that they chose to always give up this 1 week, just to give back and create that experience for other children.
What is it like when it comes to monitoring the kids? What is that system? Who's holding the devices? How often are you monitoring? What is that?
Yeah,
what does that look like?
Back a few years ago, devices weren't allowed in camp, right? Because they weren't insulin pumps. But now kids' cell phones are their insulin pumps, so they absolutely need them. They need it for monitoring of blood sugars, and they need it for insulin delivery. So counselors typically hold devices. At check-in, we will make some changes on codes to get into pumps so that we can get into them at 3 a.m. because everybody's got a different passcode. And if I need to look at a blood sugar, I wouldn't necessarily need to wake up a child. Or give insulin, I should say. So we, at check-in, we go through a system where, the counselors will assume responsibility and hold on to devices. And then remote monitoring of blood sugars can happen. It's through a different portal. It's just a different company. So it's not Dexcom Follow. It's not CareLink for Medtronic, and it's not LibreView. It's all in one, where we can see blood sugars remotely, meaning medical staff and or ADA staff if needed. So typically counselors are responsible for devices. And that makes sense. We want our kids to experience camp, right? And we want our kids to have fun and just go on the zip line and just go jump in the lake and enjoy their day. And Gaga is huge at camp. If you don't know what it is, Google it. So we want them to have fun. So yeah, sit down with me, look at your blood sugar, but then go have fun. I got this. I'll maintain everything else while you have fun. And the bells and whistles go off. They go off all day long at camp. We're all very used to all of the monitoring devices and all of the alarms. And the counselors ultimately will be responsible for, calling the kids over if they hear some beeps and dings and dongs from their bags, and they'll take care of some low blood sugars. And they also have systems in place and checkpoints to where all kids have sugars checked all throughout the day, because camp is very active.
I'm sure you have so many different kids at different levels of their independence. How do you kind of take that into account is there a process to kind of getting caught up on where they're at in their journey in the beginning?
Well, at check-in at camp, that's part of the application, and it's part of the screening at check-in. This is why during that check-in process, the parents and or caregivers who are dropping the children off will meet with the families, sit down with them, and they go over this. If a child is newly diagnosed, they're not going to have the same experience. Maybe they're not even on devices yet as somebody who's had diabetes, since they were a baby, even if they're the same age. But I find that is a gift also, because this newly diagnosed child, and this happens all the time. Even we had a newly diagnosed counselor a few years ago, and that was amazing for this counselor to show up and just really see all those kids. But a newly diagnosed child gets to, from maybe week 2 of diagnosis, just because that's timing, they just get to see this experience of camp and maybe self-inject for the first time or dial their pen for the first time. They get to see insulin pumps, and then they also get to see how this is it is diabetes. It's 24 hours a day, it's 7 days a week, but they are healthy. You are healthy. You're 100% healthy. You just need to get that insulin from the outside, and we need to do this a different way now. But you can be healthy and enjoy your life just live with. So it just depends. It depends on the kid, and I think there's strength in numbers, and they learn off of each other.
People always ask me, Justin, how do you keep on your diabetes technology? And it's a simple answer, Skin Grip. And that is why I partnered with them to sponsor today's episode. I use Skin Grip's adhesive patches to keep my Dexcom and Omnipod extra secure, especially during the humid summer, swimming, cardio workouts, and they are a must pack on all of my vacations. Whenever I notice my tech beginning to peel off, I throw on a Skin Grip and I'm set. And I look good doing it because they come in a bunch of different colors, and for a more subtle look, they come in skin tone and clear options. I prefer the colors though because I match them with my outfits. Skin Grip has patches for all CGMs, tubeless pumps, and infusion sets. They're latex-free, hypoallergenic, and easy to apply. As a Diabetic listener, you'll get 10% off your order. To grab some for yourself, check out that link in today's show notes or go to skingrip.com and use code Justin10. Now, back to the show. Yeah, I know how it feels for myself when I'm in a room full of, people with type 1 diabetes. It always feels so special because everyone in that room just understands every aspect of this disease. Mm-hmm. And I don't realize how special it is until that happens. And I'm like, wow, I'm living life all the time where people around me don't fully understand. And now everyone does understand. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so amazing. So, I'm so glad that kids at such a young age have an opportunity like this. What about the parents? I can only imagine that a lot of parents come in with, parents already put a lot of pressure, I know, in schools and camps, but this is just such an added extra amount. What is that like? What is that energy coming from the parents like? And what do you do to kind of manage that?
We meet the parents. So the parents will meet the medical staff at check-in, normally just an introduction, them meeting me, them meeting all of their med staff team, and knowing, what we do and, how we manage kids. We're there for them. They, I know the ADA has a system where if needed, they'll reach out, but then, we're on social media. So, maybe you're not getting to stare at your child's blood sugar, but, if you're following us, you're going to see, your kid tubing or, rock climbing or zip lining or horseback riding, and all the smiles. You're going to get to see your kid with, all their friends. They're, at the dance maybe. So you'll see your kid actually having an amazing, fun experience. And, we got them. We're watching them. They're healthy and happy, and I think it's hard for parents to let go, especially in today's world where, every 5 minutes they're getting that update on their phone, even while they're at work and their kids are at school, and having to let go.
And that's something we didn't even cover that necessarily. Like, you're cutting the parents off. How do the parents I'm sure they come in ready for that because they're told that that's going to be the case. But what is that switch?
So, we're supportive, right? And, there's a level of trust. A lot of the kids that come to camp, they already know me. They know me from a different aspect. Maybe it's one of the kids that comes here to the center. They know the team it's primarily staffed by CHOP. So, the team at CHOP is well known to a lot of the campers as well.
And CHOP is the Children's Hospital of
Philadelphia. Yeah, because the camp that I volunteer for is outside of Philadelphia. But, there are so many other camps out there. Camp Najeda, that's where a lot of our kids go to from NYU, from New York City. It's just a little bit closer of a location. So they meet the med staff. They know what they do in life, and it's still hard. I can tell you as a parent, it's part of the reason why I wanted to show up that first year. But really knowing how amazing of an experience these kids have, and the fact that first year I was there, I didn't even see my son for an entire week. And this was long before Dexcom follow. So, They're fine. They're fine. They're well supported and well cared for from, that medical standpoint. And what they come back with, those lifelong friends and, just that one small snapshot in time where they'll take that with them forever. That's an amazing experience. Plus the parents in a way can rest assured knowing that we know diabetes when we're there. This is specific for that, for diabetes. So, it could be used as a stepping stool for other camps, because a lot of our kids, especially in New York City, they go to camp all summer long. So they do a week at diabetes camp and then they're off for 4 to 6 week camps in general. So the tools they learn there help them in their next camp, where there's going to be a med staff there too, but it's not going to be the same. So, whether that's the graduation point and they're going to go to a different one, or they're just going to stick with diabetes camps, there's a certain comfort level parents can take in sending their child to a type 1 camp or a diabetes camp, because they'll know that all of the staff has been trained to care for their child.
Yeah, it's great. I love hearing that a lot of people use this as a stepping stone to the next step, which is a camp that not necessarily specializing in diabetes, and they can, go to the next step. That's lovely.
Or not.
Is there a moment?
We have kids that only want to come back to this camp forever. I remember a few years ago, I took care of the youngest cabin of girls, and at the end of camp, they all wrote on little Post-its, little thank yous. So they gave us this little thank you on this little pink Post-it, and it said something in the tune of, and I'm not going to quote this right, but it said, thank you for taking care of us for the week of camp. And then if we didn't have diabetes, our lives would be ruined. And, what they meant was, this was so much fun. And because I have diabetes, I get to come here. So it's something they keep with them for life. And the friends they make there are for life. It's a team that you have that's with you, that carries you through maybe some other parts of your life that you're struggling with until the next year when you get back with your friends at camp. Mm-hmm.
That's really sweet. Is there a moment when it comes to parents that sticks out to you that you remember, a moment of growth, perhaps post-camp?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of experiences. Typically, there's times where we'll have families that are just very nervous, right? They're dropping their child off to camp, and, it's challenging to let go, especially when you have been the primary for your child for such a long time. And, the day of pickup, coming back and seeing those families and just, getting that big hug saying thank you, because they just see their dancing, singing child and, how much fun they had. And, maybe it's a child who's been struggling with diabetes for a while, taking the initiative to just, feel safe and healthy and, changing something for the better, even just by this little bit. Parents see that, and it makes them want to bring their child back year after year after year, and you grow with that too. So it's an amazing experience.
To me, it feels like this camp may be, and correct me if I'm wrong, it may be more accessible than our healthcare system for some parents, because healthcare can be very expensive long term, mm-hmm. and this camp perhaps less expensive. Do you find that, are there campers that arrive that you see just may have not had the best settings, tech setup, guidance from their healthcare? Do they arrive and do they get a refined system through this camp? Are there moments like that?
Depends. I mean, we have physicians in place that staff our camp, so they're always available for consult. They're usually caring for their own cabin too, and they approve all orders. So at check-in, if we identify some things that might be better for the health and safety of a child in a different way, it depends on the child. Do they want the technology? Because there's some kids that, maybe that's just not what they want in this moment, but teaching them to love their diabetes in its own space is good. And, we try to give them, meet them halfway. But yeah, you have people from all walks of life, and we discuss every day. Our physicians will go over, the doses for kids. And, we discuss that. And then at the end, when we talk to families, if I have made significant changes or any changes, we go over that with families. So, here's what I had to do. Your kid was very active. Maybe they're sedentary at home. And we changed these doses around to avoid the highs and lows. He liked this. He tried this pump site on. He's thinking about, XYZ technology. And it's nice because the kids get to see it firsthand on all different levels and experience it. And then we can take that back to families. As far as cost, you had said that maybe it's more accessible than a lot of healthcare. Everything's expensive, right? These camps do come with a cost. I know that there are scholarships available, though. I know that camps will tell you don't let cost be a factor. Please reach out to the specific camp you want to go to and talk to administration and see how you can go about that scholarship process. I know personally here, my social worker, because I just needed somebody to speak the same language of my family, I helped them with the application to come to Camp Freedom one year, and she came and she had an amazing time. So, that is something you can work with your healthcare provider and or the camp directly on, but try to not let cost be a factor, because I know if I did the application and saw the cost that it's high, it's camp, they're supporting, everything, but apply for the scholarships, and they hope that you will still apply, because they will work with you and your family to help your kid have that experience.
I'm really glad that we touched on that. Mm-hmm. That's super important. You've mentioned a lot of different activities that seem very, camp activities, but I almost want to talk about some of the activities that are a little more specialized, like mealtime. What is mealtime like? I spoke to a family that this episode aired prior to this one, and they said that, bolusing was part of the schedule. Can you kind of just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where as med staff, every day we say, what time is breakfast? What time is lunch? What time is dosing? But it happens every single day at the same time. So usually about 15 minutes before, 20 minutes before, we all go to the mess hall. And that's where meals take place, snacks take place at different places, usually at the evening activity or at the pool. So 15 minutes before the food is when we will find our cabin of children or sit down at the table, which, their space is designated. So everybody is together, so you can meet your medical staff there. And kids count their carbs. So each med staff person has their system, but the menus of camps don't look like typical menus. When the kids walk in, they are shown the food so they can physically see the food, so they know what they're picking ahead of time. So they're shown it on a tray when they walk in usually, and then there's a menu, and on that menu, which is usually batched to the cabin even before the meal, so they can go over it with the kids, so the kids can start thinking about it, instead of French fries, whatever calories or whatever, because it's type 1, we don't care about that. What we need is the carb count. It'll say French fries, 30 carbs, watermelon, 11 grams. So everything is, food item, carb count, food item, carb count. And the ADA has dietitians that work on that carb count. They work so hard on all of the food prep. and all of meal specific things, and we have all things to take into account. Do kids have celiacs? Do they need to be gluten-free? There's gluten-free stations. Are they vegetarian? Do they have allergies? So, all things are taken into account for campers as needed, and all menus have a carb count. So I personally will hand my kids their napkins, and they'll all have something to write on, and they will write their carbs right out, or at least what they're eating if they're tiny and they can't actually write the carbs down. And they'll come up to me with, older kids are just going to count their carbs and they're going to tell me what they're eating, and we dose together. And it doesn't matter how old you are. If you're independent at home as far as dosing because you're 16, you need to check in with your med staff when you're dosing at camp. It's just a different way. It's a camp rule. And I get it, it's a safety reason, because these kids are very active and we need to know how much insulin they're giving. So we all do this all together. We talk about our doses. We talk about what we're eating. You decide on your carbs. You go get that food, and then you eat your food. We pre-meal dose, right? And then if you want seconds, that's when the kids I'll either circle back, especially the teenage boys, they all want seconds, so just go back to the table, or the kids will come get me because we're in the mess hall, the dining hall, they call it there, throughout the whole meal. So there's always med staff accessible to redose children if needed. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so awesome. That right there just sounds like such an incredible experience for kids to go to, and almost a way of training, and refining this skill that is going to be with you for, the rest of your life, or for until we have pumps that, are truly closed loop. That's so wonderful. I mean, I would love to I want to go to camp. I really do want to go to camp. And I know we discussed that. So I'm going to try and, get my way there and be able to make a video about it or something.
And it's very much camp. So cool. I mean, there's music, we're dancing, we're singing, we're laughing. But, because most of the medical staff, we do this for a living. I'm also individually talking with each of these 10 kids within a 5-minute time frame, not even, because they got to go get their food. We're talking about it. We're discussing it. We're discussing what they want to do with their carbs. Do they want to, extend the bolus? Is it a tandem pump? And this is what I do at home, and this is what I want to do. And, and they're telling me I might have seconds. I'm going to come find you. Can you come see me in 10 minutes? And this is because it's very normal. We learn our kids very quick, and, we learn what they like, what they don't like. Are they somebody that typically doesn't finish their food? Maybe we want to talk about that. And like all of this is just normal because it's diabetes, and this is what everybody's doing there. Everybody. So yeah, they're going to learn things that they'll take home. Maybe somebody doesn't normally pre-meal bolus. Maybe they'll start giving some insulin before food, or start initiating that conversation with parents about extending boluses, different things with carbs. Hey, I counted my burger roll is 30 grams at camp. Do you think it might be that here too? And here's how we looked it up. So it's nice because they get to take home those staple pieces. But in their minds, especially the little ones, they're just eating. It's just food. Yeah. They're having more fun because maybe it's dance night and they've all sparkled themselves up already, right? And they're just ready to go. And they're talking about the talent show. Did we practice our skit? Yeah. And it's just normal camp stuff that everybody happens to have diabetes. And that's what makes it more special too.
What other camps? You've mentioned that there's some other camps. Do you know of? Are you able to list off some of the ones that are available? Have you been involved in some of these other ones in any way?
No, I wish I had the time to do all the camps, right? But I use, 6 vacation days for Camp Freedom a year. So it's, if I had unlimited, PTO, maybe I would do some more. I might.
NYU should give you some free PTO days for that.
Right?
We got to talk to NYU about that. I mean, come on.
Well, I think it's more like the Nurse Practice Act in New York State I need to petition with. That's another big hurdle to cross. But yeah, the ADA, the American Diabetes Association, they have several local camps, and you can just go to their website. You can Google ADA camps, and you can search for a camp in your area. Camp Najeda I mentioned. There are several offerings. There's 1-2 week offerings for sleepover camps, and there's, like I said, family weekends, sibling weekends, friends weekends that are really cool. That's also a great introduction, by the way, a family weekend. We had a family go to Najeda for a family weekend. Because they just weren't sure if they were ready to send their child to camp. And this gives parents the camp experience. So the whole family goes and the whole family participates the whole weekend, which is super cool. So the families get to see camp in action before they allow their child to go there, which is really good. It's also great, if you're newly diagnosed and you just want, to connect with other people too, and connect with other parents and families. It's great for both parents, caregivers, and for the kids. And then the Barton Center, Jocelyn, so they have several offerings. They're also within the tri-state area as far as New York. We have kids that go there. Camp Saidabad, that's in New Jersey, and a lot of kids from Pennsylvania and New Jersey go to Saidabad. There is a DTC, it's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a teen boot camp. It's more for athletes. And that is type 1 diabetes. And this is more for teen athletes, though. It's called DTC Teen Boot Camp. So, and this is gearing kids towards how to manage diabetes with being athletic, which is really important. So,
wow.
So those are just a few off the top of my head. There are tons out there, though. It just depends on how far you're willing to go. I know here in New York City, most people don't drive, right? So most people don't even have cars. So there are some. Camp Najeda, I know they offer transportation, which is really big. I know the Camp Freedom that I volunteer for offers transportation from Philly. So you want to investigate things that are going to work with your life too. Am I going to be able to get my kid to camp and then pick them up also? So those two are big for those two reasons also.
I'm sure one of the biggest worries when it comes to parents sending their kids here is just the overnight moment, right? That's where I guess things are more likely to there to be an issue. Can you just tell us a little bit about what's the process? The kids go to sleep. What is happening behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, there's a huge hub, the med shed, and we have remote monitoring of blood sugars in the med shed. So we also have them color coded. So green, red, yellow, simple CGM color coded. And we set parameters a little differently than maybe home parameters. I know here at NYU, less than 70 is a low blood sugar, but at camp, at Camp Low, we might treat less than 80 just because the kids are so active. It sort of depends. And then less than 100 pre-activity. So that's much different. So, we have access to blood sugars. We monitor blood sugars. There is a team every night. So there's a night shift. So we're all assigned that going in, and it is 2 to 4 providers. And then there is the A team, which is the American Diabetes Association team. So there's a team of 18 people that also go to cabins, boys and girls cabins. We usually split it boys and girls. There's also CDEs that take call as well. So typically there'll be 2 to 4 providers, maybe 2 to 4 CDEs, and then also the A team. And we will split cabins, and we will go to every cabin. System of checks, usually 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. and anything in between that needs to happen. So, as you know, pump site failure doesn't pick a time of day, right? And maybe you don't know that pump is failing or about to fail at 10 o'clock when you go to sleep, but by 2, 3 a.m., those blood sugars are trending up. There's a team in place to go check that out and make a decision whether is that pump working or not. And we will, dose in the cabin or take the appropriate steps to take care of the kids. Sometimes there's, 10 cabins that I'm checking at 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. and, 9 out of the 10 cabins, everybody's just sleeping. And, there's that one cabin where, yep, we have some camp glows here. And you just feel like you're there for a while. And we keep it dark. I got my phone or my little headlamp on. And, I'm just, tapping on that child and giving them a juice, letting them, just rest in between. But staying with them and watching their blood sugars until they come up. And then we're on our way to the next cabin to do it again. And then before you know it, it's 3 a.m. and we're circling back again. But we're watching that, and we're that system of checks has been in place for the past 15 years, even before CGMs. It was just finger sticks, 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Have there been any talks of extending the time length of these camps? They're 1-2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, why not a month, 2 months, having more kids travel over? I don't know.
Well, the kids would love it. Most kids at camp will say to you, I just wish we didn't have to go. I wish this was just another week. And that would extend to 2, 4, or 6 week camps. To my knowledge, there hasn't been talk about summer long sleepaway camp for kids with type 1. I think that's a bigger thing that, hey, I'd love to get involved in. But funding, let's talk about that. We need facility, we need funding, and we need to staff these places and staff them well, because if we do this, we have to do it well. But that would be amazing. It would be amazing.
Well, hopefully maybe this episode and the last episode will inspire someone listening to get involved. And I mean, I would love to get involved too, and make that happen, because it just sounds like such a rewarding opportunity, not just for the campers too, but for all the counselors. It's the reason you've been going back for 15 years.
Absolutely.
And I would love to find a way to give back in my own way. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was so wonderful. And I hope that parents listening will, go check out the link in the description and see how they can, this year maybe probably a little too late, but for next year, hopefully they can
yeah, I mean, there still might be some spots. Justin, I will send you my camp handout that I give to all families. So it has links right on it for all of the New York City area camps and all of the ones that I discussed. And yeah, thank you for having me. So yeah, I highly recommend camps. If you know me in the center, it's all I talk about from this time during the year until I get back. Very rewarding. So hope to see your kids at camp.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you haven't already, go listen to my incredibly heartwarming conversation with these two parents and their child from last week's episode. It was so sweet to hear directly from them their anxieties and how much their daughter has grown. It was amazing. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments on this video or that video so other parents can answer them for you. If you're looking for exclusive behind the scenes content and special interviews and Q&As, you should check out my Patreon. For the cost of a latte a month, you'll get all those extras and you'll help support my channel. Episodes of this podcast release every Monday wherever you listen and on YouTube. Links to my YouTube, social media channels, and anything I've mentioned are in the show notes. I'm Justin, and I'll see you next week.